This book project started several years ago, actually already in 2006, when we tried with Klaus Zimmermann to learn more about the experience of the European Union after enlargement. Now, being labor economists and being in migration research, our key question was how has or has not mobility evolved over time after enlargement, and how it has helped or not the European Union to cope with all kinds of challenges, how it has affected the European Union, and how migrants moved, what kind of impacts migration has had. The question was whether migration has helped the European Union or not, and the European Monetary Union in particular, to absorb the asymmetric shocks that that came by during the economic recession. Now, if you think about economic recession of late 2000s, EU enlargement, transitional arrangements, this variation and these changes actually helped us to identify these effects. We can think of them as kind of natural experiments. If you think about the European Union, the member states, economies, and then came the EU enlargement, then came the transitional arrangements and opening up of labor markets, and the Great Recession. All of that provided interesting variation in this group of countries with different economic shocks, different migration regimes, which was something that scientists like, in a way that we like this variation, and we like that there are changes which you can exploit and identify impacts and causes of mobility and migration within the EU. Sometimes migration is portrayed as something that's not very desirable, and it's a security issue, and it may be a security issue partially, but from an economic perspective, we find generally neutral or positive effects. Of course, there is some adjustment, but there is adjustment always. There is always any policy and any changes in the labor market, any changes in the labor market, they have some consequences. But if you look at aggregate statistics and if you look at aggregate effects, we find neutral or positive effects of mobility on European Union's GDP, on actual employment rates. Not many people would believe, but we actually do find positive effects on EU mobility and inflow of migrants on employment rates of the natives. And why is this? Well, because they they flow into sectors and industries where there are bottlenecks, and they actually help the economies to be more dynamic. So this is the European Union level evidence. But then we thought, okay, let's explore the variation at the level of national states. So we asked the experts to look into, to use the best data they had, for different member states, and try to answer the question about how migration has affected those countries and whether it has helped or not them to adjust. And from that evidence, from the country studies, we again our results from the aggregate level or from the pan-European level, those results are confirmed. If you take Germany, for example, what you find is that migrants there were indeed inflows of migrants in Germany before the crisis. Then there was virtually no net immigration after Germany, during the worst times, during the times when the economic crisis hit Germany in 2009. And then after that, after recovery, again there were inflows. So this is precisely the pattern of adjustment that you would expect. There were people leaving Ireland it was impossible to buy a ticket from Ireland to the UK or to Poland after the crisis hit Ireland. This is precisely the type of evidence that is consistent with the idea that mobility helps European Union to adjust to asymmetric economic shocks. If you think about sending countries, take an example of Slovakia and also the other countries where there was a fear that out-migration actually is a brain drain. So it's the best people, best brains, best hands that live in these countries, and that may potentially create problems in the medium to long term. Now, our evidence shows from Slovakia shows that it wasn't the most skilled that left the country. If you look at the effect of formal education on out-migration, we find that actually it were medium to less skilled people less educated people who left the country. And then, when those people came back, when you look at return migrants, experience they gain from, experience they gain in receiving countries has actually helped them to reintegrate in the labor market, the Slovak labor market, and to find better employment and, and earn higher wages and become more employable. When it comes to policy recommendations coming out of this book, so what we take as a starting point is the observation that migrants indeed move in the way and the directions and the patterns of migration are consistent with the idea that mobility of labor helps European Union to adjust and to absorb different kinds of asymmetric shocks affecting different countries. It also helps to close the East-West divide in terms of economic, the level of economies, unemployment and wages. Another important result from the book is that migration has generally neutral or positive effects. It's not something that we should fear. It's something that actually is helpful also in view of the demographic challenges and in view of shortages and skill mismatch in European labor markets. And so when it comes to policy recommendations, our key recommendation is to nurture mobility in the EU and to communicate this to the general public that mobility is something that we should not fear and something that actually helpful that actually helps the European Union, but also the economies and individuals to find jobs, to have better careers, to have better education, because that also of course involves mobility of students. So it empowers European citizens to have better lives.